Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Pedro Taduran versus Christian Balunan fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into this one. Oh wait, sorry, just before we get into it, feel free to join the Patreon as well. You can request any kind of combat sporting related content, and I really appreciate all the support in which I've had with it so far, and it does really support the channel. So again, the link will be in the description. Now let's get straight into it though, and of course, this fight is in memory of the Ali Fraser Thrilla in Manila. It's a fight commemorating its 50th anniversary. I think it's obviously it's a main event of what is the start of the hosting of the commemorative week. I'm not entirely sure, but I know that it's being put on by Manny Pacquiao's MP Promotions, so there's definitely something for these fighters to be fighting for. Of course, the minimum weight division, bar Oscar Collazo, doesn't often get much notice or much of a look in, or really is in the headlines much. So this is an opportunity for Filipino fighters, two of them, to be able to showcase what they have in front of, Manny Pacquiao, and on a kind of big commemorative stage, and in front of the fans, in which I'm sure will be turning out in good numbers, because quite often, the Filipino fans do come out in good numbers, especially for, big events, anything to do with Manny Pacquiao, from what it seems. It is an all-Filipino matchup, and it's giving the mandatory challenger in Christian Balunan the opportunity to have a shot at the belt. Of course, he's an undefeated fighter, decent record, on the eye, but again, when you look into it a bit more, like most Thai fighters, it's quite a padded record, but again, he's highly ranked. He's the highest ranked fighter in the IBF, and the IBF have made this a mandatory for Taduran. I do kind of have to talk about the tragic events that kind of took place in Taduran's last fight. Of course, he is coming off a win. Taduran, he won via split decision against Jinjiro Shigeoka, but obviously that was Jinjiro Shigeoka's last ever boxing fight due to the injuries he suffered during the fight and kind of at the end of the fight, where he just collapsed. And yeah, it was a very sad to see kind of clip in which I ended up seeing, and yeah, it does, of course, bring the reality of boxing, and yeah, it's not nice to see. Of course, I'm sure it's probably had an effect on Taduran, and it would have had an effect on anybody, to be fair, and it's going to take a lot for Taduran to be able to mentally probably move away from that. And this fight is probably just him getting away from that event, and mentally kind of pushing that away, because it is such a bad thing, and he needs to kind of move along in his career. And he's always going to remember that moment, but he can't, he has to be able to, like I say, move on with his boxing career. And Taduran will be interesting to see if he pays any kind of respect or anything. Obviously, Shigeoka hasn't passed. He does, from what I've heard, seem to be making a slow recovery. Of course, Yudai Shigeoka has also gone on to retire as well, and so that's the end of the Shigeoka brothers, which is a real shame, but it does make sense why Yudai retired. And of course, I send my best wishes out to their family, and I hope that Jinjiro's recovery is going well and continues to go well. But yeah, like I say, it will be definitely interesting to see how Taduran, if he comes into this fight any less aggressive, or perhaps a bit more hesitant, due to the fact of him possibly wanting to hold back punches because he doesn't want to damage his opponent too much, which is completely fair, like I say, given to what happened at the back end of just his last fight. As a fighter though, I mean, he has done very well to get to this position. In the past, he lost his IBF belt against Kawato, but now, of course, he's the one holding the belt again, and has some decent names on his record. I mean, his clear standout wins were against Shigeoka, who at the time was a highly touted prospect, but he's also beat the likes of Daniel Valladares, who was a good name to have, and Samuel Salva as well, again another good name, of course Valladares being a former world champion as well. And this is an opportunity and a chance for Taduran to show off his belt in front of his home crowd and, of course, offer the tough southpaw test to Balunan, who hasn't really had to deal with any kind of elite fighters, let alone an elite southpaw fighter. Balunan, again, like I said, is one of these Thai fighters who have a nice record on first glance, but then you kind of look more into it and you see his past 3 opponents have a combined 1 win in their last 15 fights. So basically, each one of their past 5 fights, they have a combined total of 1 win between all 3 of them, if that makes sense. And that was, of course, when he fought them, but still, like I say, that's not really something in which you kind of see and go, this guy's ready for a world title fight. Of course, he picked up the WBO Asian title against an unbeaten fighter. He won via stoppage against like a 5-0 unbeaten Thai fighter. So again, that's probably the most significant part of his career. But for the most part, I mean, he's still a bit of an unknown entity just due to the fact of, you don't really know how good he's going to be because, of course, we haven't seen him fight against a high level of opposition. To speak about both fighters individually, though, Taduran as a fighter, he's got a tight guard, he holds his ground well, he's a good fighter who offers good bodywork, he changes levels well, and I think the mix of changing levels to then, going with a nice bodywork is impressive. I think a lot of Thai fighters work really well on their bodywork, and Taduran, similar to that of fellow champion Melvin Jerusalem, they both offer very good bodywork, which is why it's another reason why I really want to see that matchup. And it was a bit of a shame, this as a commemorative event. It could have been a big fight with Taduran versus Jerusalem, which, I'm sure the Filipino fans would have come out for, and that would have been a bigger fight. But again, nonetheless, that can still happen down the line. He's a pressure fighter who punches over the guard well, and pretty much every shot he throws with power, and it's kind of often thrown as like a hook. The majority of the punches in which he throws are thrown similarly like a hook type fashion. Even his straight shots come at, a bit of a curved angle. He wants to fight best in close. He pushes the pace. He's always aiming to come back with shots. He's willing to rough you up as well, and for the most part, I believe does have a good chin and can also just take a good shot anywhere to the body, to the head. He doesn't give in, and even if things aren't going his way, or even if he's getting outboxed a bit, he's gonna keep coming forwards. He's gonna keep trying to let his hands go and doing his own work. He returns his punches back to his guard nicely, returning them back to that nice tight guard, which makes it difficult for him to get hit, even though, perhaps his speed isn't tremendous. The shots in which he throws do come from pretty much every angle, and that was something in which, you could see was catching Shigeoka out in that last fight. He was, getting caught with shots from multiple different angles whenever Taduran was going and throwing a lot of his left. He'd mix in a good kind of right chopping overhand, and that would have success for Taduran. He makes you fight his fight, and again, I think he was able to do that in his last fight and the fight before. He's got a good consistent work rate. You basically can't stay on the ropes against him. You pretty much are forced to always be moving because, if you are on the ropes against him, he will tee off and he probably will be able to land it quite significantly. And he's able to fight well in the clinch. Again, looking back at that last performance of his, he was often finding himself with his arm kind of caught up in one clinch, but then just also chopping to the body, with his left, and that was having bits of success, and it's of course point scoring shots as well. And when it was a close split decision, that's what he needed really. Negatives about him, I mean, he's a flat-footed fighter for the most part, and he doesn't really want to take a backward step, which does make him quite a big target to land on. He does sometimes seem to struggle to find his range at a mid-range and can be made to follow a bit as well. His hand speed is limited. He's not always able to really put his combinations together enough. I would like to see him maybe put some combinations together a bit better. I think if we are comparing champions in Jerusalem and Taduran, I think Jerusalem puts his combinations a bit better together. He can be made to overreach with his hooks as well. Often he will throw a hook and it's just far too short and he's way too far out of range to throw it. And I don't really know, why he's making the effort to throw it because it is a wasteful shot. And I think in general his timing isn't the best. He's not using his actually not that bad a head movement enough. A lot of it is shots he is just taking, and like I say, he could use his head movement, which isn't that bad, which is actually, in my opinion, better than Balunan's when he uses it, but he just doesn't use it. He walks onto shots a lot, like I say, he leans over his front foot, he forgets his jab, he can be caught, because he's just not fast enough. He also, like I say, tries to force his way in as well, which yet again can lead him to be timed. Balunan, as a fighter, he's a faster fighter, in general has faster hands, faster feet. He twists nicely and well into his body shots. Of course, when you look at his record, he's got 7 stoppages in 12 fights, I believe. And yes, again, the level of opposition speaks for itself, but he does seem to be able to carry a good level of power and, like I say, twist into shots nicely. And that body shot does look very mean when he throws it. He is often aiming to try and counter whenever he gets caught with a shot. It'll be interesting to see how he deals with Taduran if, he's taking shots from Taduran coming forwards, if he is able to continuously counter and if that leads Balunan to go and again fight Taduran's fight and then, turn into a bit of a war. He can box well at a mid-range but also can land well in close. He puts power into all his punches. He's more willing to take a backward step, and I think, sometimes he's more willing to take a backward step. At a mid-range, he will take a back step, he can make you miss, he can, look good, look like a good, sharp, technical fighter, but then when he's in close, he's just planting his feet. He plants his feet well, but then he's just not moving at all if it goes to a, in close affair, and he will just allow the opponent to do their work before he tries to do anything. And again, if he was trying to take that step back and if he wasn't just allowing his opponent to land when it's in close, then I feel like he would be able to look a lot sharper, a lot cleaner, and then be able to land his shots better. He fights in quite fast spurts. Again, for the most part, he is a bit more of a slower paced type fighter as a whole, but he does come out in quite sudden, fast spurts. He can punch through a guard, and I think is probably the more technical out of the two. Negatives about him, he can often be caught quite heavy to the body and seems to just accept that punishment. I think he's a slower pace fighter, like I said. He allows his opponent to do his work before he responds, like I've touched upon. He's not as strong. He seems to duck his head down a bit when he gets caught. He can come in straight up, standing very straight and, up tall when he's throwing, and it means he can get countered with a big overhand, and that big overhand right is really there to land well and looks good. And I've seen him get caught by a couple of the lower level opposition by him coming in with the straight shot. And being so up tall and, like I say, just walking straight onto a big overhand when he's throwing. He doesn't always make his jab effective enough. His jab is good when he uses it, but sometimes it's good. It's a power jab, and when he can use it well, then it's really effective, but he just doesn't make it effective enough. He can just wastefully throw it quite a lot. He can wait too long in range. His chin is exposed. He doesn't use much head movement himself, and when he does try and use a bit of head movement, he looks very uncomfortable and quite robotic when he's doing it. He's used to fighting at his pace, of course, and I think at the same time, he's throwing singles far too much and just kind of relying on them powerful single shots, too much in my opinion. Who do I think is going to win? I think that Pedro Taduran is going to be able to win via TKO in round 7. I think Taduran's going to be able to disrupt him. Like I say, I think if it goes to an in-close type fight, then he's going to be able to do whatever he wants to do around really and get off his best work. And if it goes to a clinch as well, Balunan is not going to be used to fighting in a clinch. Again, Taduran will be able to do that. I think Balunan at some point will resort to just going toe to toe with Taduran, which of course would be what Taduran will want. And I think Taduran will walk him down, make Balunan be on the back foot, probably follow him around. That's not really what you want to see, but there might be moments where Balunan tries to use his power and plant his feet, but I think Taduran has got a pretty decent chin, can take, like I say, a decent shot, and inevitably will be just too overwhelming for Balunan at this point in his career. Then, who we can go on to fight next? I mean, Melvin Jerusalem himself is actually fighting Kuz for the WBC belt in just a few days. So again, that could be a good fight there to be made. Again, I really want to see that one. If not, then Collazo at some point. I feel like that has to happen. But I think Taduran should fight Jerusalem before he fights Collazo, because if they don't fight and Collazo goes on to beat Jerusalem again, then it's just a wasted opportunity for a big, Thai unification fight, which really could, Filipino, sorry, unification fight that really could sell well. But again, possibly Collazo might kind of just jump in instead. Or Zhu is somebody who is a Chinese fighter who's been, again, kind of taking over in fights all over Asia, Vietnam. I think he's fought Korea, a lot of different countries in Asia. But again, he's in a good position and is technically next in line if we're going just purely off the rankings for Taduran. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like video if you did, like video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.